Welcome to my channel. I'm really excited to introduce this next guest that I have. Not only is he a guest, but he's a dear friend and a family member. It's my pleasure to introduce him, Nathan Finstead. Thanks for joining me today.
Good to be here. You've always been, since I met you as teenagers, the Nathan that made me feel inadequate. I got to live up to that, Nathan. So, love you, man. It's good to be here.
I appreciate that. Well, you know, I might have been the off the wall Nathan, the one that was probably getting in trouble back in the youth.
Uber talented, uber good looking. You know, thankfully he's dating my cousin, so I don't have to compete with him over girls. So Amy helped me out there, get him off the market, so I got some chances. But yeah, looked up to you a lot.
I've heard from my wife how much she has always loved your bunch and how great you guys are. So
a lot of time growing up playing and pretending. I might be 3 or 4 years older than Amy. I'm not sure age-wise. I'm 48, but she's a few years younger than me, and so she'd play with my little sisters. But we'd always pretend in the woods and over there in the holler. Man, they had some cool forts built to play whatever you wanted to imagine. So charmed childhood with them growing up.
Yeah. So we're going to get into this in a second, but we served as bishop some of the same time.
Mm-hmm. Bishops' councils together.
And I'll just say that I recognize that I've been sort of the bishop that will get up and sing songs and just kind of not real afraid to speak in public. But you, to me, have been the bishop that when he spoke, everybody listened. Like, I would say, like, that dude is super sincere, super knowledgeable. If he's got something to say, I'm listening.
Man, I appreciate that. Now that I'm where I am now, even more than when I was in, hearing a compliment or something, because I tried to be sincere. I was scared. I've got a little quote that I still hang up in my shed. It says, "The world is full of phonies. Don't be a phony." I heard Brock Lesnar say that after a UFC fight, and I was like, right on, that's cool. And I'm just scared to death of being phony, and so I tried. I'm sure I came across as phony a lot, but thank you for saying that, man. That means a lot.
Well, I never picked up on any phoniness, that's for sure. So let me get the elephant out of the room for a second. When I have went through what we'll call the deconstruction, I've been very vocal, and I don't know why. That's just sort of, I guess, my style. You haven't been, not that I know of. Now, maybe in your own world, but as far as social media and things, to me, you haven't been. So why have you decided to come and chit chat with me today?
I still don't have Facebook. I enjoy being a recluse. If I could live somewhere out on the lake or in the mountains and no one know where I am, I would prefer that. I get that honestly from my dad's side of the family. There's some on mom's side too that are up in the hollers still, but I enjoy just being simple. I'm a simpleton. I've said that at the pulpit. I would stand up and give a testimony or talk, and I would mention how I feel inadequate. Who am I to lead anybody? I'm doing my best. I'm a simpleton. And people would criticize me sometimes lovingly and say, "You're the leader. Speak with confidence. You're the bishop." And they never set well with me. So as we've stumbled into this stuff and have led us where we are out of the church, I've enjoyed not bothering anybody with it. And I've even, as I reached out to just a couple family members and had some conversations on the couch and explained where we are, and just a couple have reached out and wondered where we are. It's been interesting. But I had one family member say, "You don't need to tell this to anybody." You know, almost like, "This is dangerous and you just need to keep quiet about it." And I've looked back at times at that and thought, that makes me mad. But in the moment, I thought, yeah, you're right. I don't need to share this with anybody. It's blowing up my world. I don't want to blow up anybody else's world. But man, we're pushing, it's about 6 years that this initially happened to me. And it happened to me. I ain't looking for nothing. It just, boom, happened to me. And so 6 years have gone by. And I don't know if I'm any more ready to talk to anybody or blow up anybody's world. Not interested in causing trauma or pain to anybody, especially the way I've experienced it. But here's the hillbilly in me. Dadgummit, there are people who are going through what I went through. There are people who are going to go through what I went through, and there are people on the tail end of what I went through that I know in my situation, as I listened, read, studied, and sought some help or advice from wherever I could get some help, I stumbled into people and conversations and interviews and books that helped me not feel crazy. And so if my words help no one, so be it. But this is the first time in 6 years that I am, I guess through the wonders of the internet and technology, I'm telling the world, yeah, I got an experience that may or may not matter to you, but if it does, good. I needed someone to talk. And I'm talking if someone needs to hear what I have to say.
So I'm going to be honest with you. My sister left the church, and it hurt, but I was bishop, and it was different for me than when I had found out that you all left. And I guess that's where they're just, family, and I respected the hell out of you guys so much. And I've told myself a few times since then that even though I didn't tell anyone, I thought to myself, whatever got him is probably going to get me, because that dude was solid. So I looked at our text before you came over today and scrolled all the way back.
Yeah.
And
a couple years now into this.
About a year and a half, and I came across the very first text, and you were the very first person that I reached out to when I was like, what is going on? I'm not going to tell my story right now all that much, but I come across the gospel topic essays, and things started not adding up, and I was like, you know what? I'm reaching out and I hadn't even talked to my wife yet.
Wow.
And I'm actually kind of not real proud about that, and that was your first thing. You said, I got one question for you. Are you and Amy on the same page?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
It was to me.
And I responded that I hadn't talked to her yet. And then my next text was, hey man, had a good long talk with my wife, and we're on the same page. And then you just went on and on about how happy that made you, and so.
Thanks for sharing that. I had forgotten about our text thread. I remember the phone call. Am I cutting you off?
No,
Finish your thought. I'm good about cutting people off. I remember when you called me. I'm out in the yard on a pretty sunny day. I'm out in the yard doing something, and I work nights primarily, so I'm like, anytime I'm out enjoying some sunshine, I want to. Phone rings, it's Nathan Hinckley, and I remember thinking, so this must have been before a text. It was, I think, because you called, and I remember going, the last time I heard about Nathan's calling, he was doing something in the stake, I think, with the youth. He's calling to ask why my sons aren't going to youth camp conference, and why are they going to go on missions. I don't want to do this. But I answered because I love you. I was like, hello. And you said something about, talking to my mom, and she had mentioned that you and your family had maybe stepped away or take some time off from church, and you didn't quite say, is everything all right? But you kind of were saying, like, is everything all right? And I remember we just, tip of the iceberg, kind of had a little conversation. And I hung up kind of going, it's starting for Nathan. And it scared me because I'm like, I don't want to be the reason. But luckily I knew your sister was where she was to some degree, because my wife and her communicate and have visited with each other. And I remember telling my wife, tell Nathan's sister that he might be going through some stuff. And I don't know if your sister ever did that. I don't know if my wife talked to your sister about it, but I was worried. Yeah. The world's getting ready to blow up.
It certainly did. It blew up. I went through the lowest of lows for me, for sure. But also, I'm going to say now I'm starting to see some of the highest of highs. I mean, it's just, for me, it's just about truth and honesty. And I feel like we haven't had some of that from our church. So I actually don't know much about how this all started for you. Can you walk me through just a little bit about your upbringing, and before you get into I guess your faith crisis or whatever?
whatever tenure you have in doing this kind of conversation format with people, I might be your closest Mormon story, because this could get rolling, brother. So I don't want to be hours long, but I tried to sit down and do an outline a couple times thinking highlights. And over 6 years of just the Mormon church stuff, I thought, man, there's no way to pinpoint and make an outline. It is a shotgun blast on the wall of overwhelming experience and emotion and all that. So here we go. But I was raised in Campbell County, Tennessee, beautiful, idyllic childhood. Dad worked his butt off to provide for us, good blue-collar, hard coal miner, man. I mean, willing to do anything to feed us, and will always take to my grave the fact that he taught me hard work and responsibility and discipline. Grateful for that. And Mom was fortunate enough to stay home raising us kids for the most part up until about high school. Middle school, she had to kind of start working a little bit to help out. But that idyllic Mom and Dad doing their best with all their imperfections, giving us shelter and food, love it. And born into the covenant. So Mom and Dad from Michigan, but had family here in Tennessee, and they ended up down here because Dad discovered Tennessee way better than Detroit, and thank the Lord he made that decision. But when Dad came down here, he was going through that post-hippie era, finding himself kind of wild child. I've got stories from cousins who said, first time I met your dad, he had long hair and he's driving a hot rod, and I said, hey, Wayne and Pat's coming to town. And they were younger than Dad, Mom, and I remember one of my cousins said, yeah, I met your dad. And I said, hey, Wayne, good to see you. And he looked over and said, peace, man. And we were like, whoa, he's a real hippie. So bless Dad's heart. He came out of that era of rebellion and struggling, finding himself in the Mormon church. And my mom and papa, my mom's mom and dad, gave him some real foundation to kind of get some solid footing raising a family. So I'm raised in that covenant, they had gone to the temple and went through all the steps, all of them. Beautiful little branch still right here in La Follette. And I got the memories of passing sacrament, primary, being those rebellious little boys in the back, right? Raising hell in church, but getting the emotional uplift and good feelings from the stories, things that I believed in. I remember, being at home as a kid on a Sunday, being at home and something from primary sticking with me, and me and my sisters more than once talking about the flood and Noah and contemplating, man, how did he get all those animals on the boat? I mean, it was real. It was reality. It wasn't mythological or things we could learn from stories. It was factual, real life history and truth. And I was raised in that. And Mom and Dad did their best to, at times, try family home evening, and then tail off and not do it for years, but always weave back into trying and encouraging. It was never expected for us to hit all the high points. It wasn't, you will serve a mission and you will marry in the temple and you will, but it was certainly understood and enforced lovingly, nothing force-fed down our throats. And so, but Mom and Dad ended up going through divorce, and I'm in high school at that point when they get separated and go through divorce, and that shook our world. And seeing Dad, he started driving a truck just to kind of start a different career and get space from the two of them. For a minute, they thought they could maybe work it out, and it didn't happen that way. And that blew up our family. My brother's a freshman in college at that point. I got 3 little sisters at home, and I'm the leader in the house now because Dad's on the road trucking months at a time before he can even get back into town to see us. And so it was pressure. I didn't like it. I didn't want it. I don't remember anybody explaining to me, you're the man of the house now and you need to try to lead. But I felt that. My sisters would sometimes say things to me, or I remember when they initially found out they're getting divorced, one of my sisters hugs me and she's like, what's happening to our family and why? And I'm just like, I don't know, but I'm going to go to my buddies and play basketball because, I'm a kid, teenager. And so that was the period as a teenager when I'm in church and should be encouraged to get ready for that mission and stuff, that all the turmoil in our family, I'm staying the night with my buddy now. And I'm old enough to have a job, and make a little money to buy a 4-wheeler, put it in the back of my little pickup truck, and we're going to spend Sundays 4-wheeling up in the mountains here. And never had anybody really saying, you need to be in church. Maybe if they did, I didn't remember. I wasn't home. You know, I was running away from that drama at home. And so that carried into through high school. And as I'm graduating high school, I go down to a technical school down in Chattanooga for a year. And while I'm down there, I'm coming home. My mom remarries and moves to Alabama. Dad's still trucking and he's living in Knoxville. So I'm out of high school. I'm kind of like, okay, on my own. But I get settled into this tech school in Chattanooga that everyone kind of thought like, good, Nathan's taken care of. And all the girls are going to Alabama with mom. But I was miserable and wasn't enjoying studying, and I was going through the motions. And come back to La Follette to do some laundry on weekends and stay with Mama and Papa, James and Kate Smith. Gosh, if there was ever angels on earth in my life experience, it was those two. You know, others as well, but those two just take the cake. And I remember Mama telling me I'm packing up my stuff, and she's giving me soup beans for the road and all that, to bless her heart. And she hands me, there's a Book of Mormon on the table there as I'm going out the door, and she says, you know what, I dug that out of the closet or whatever, and she probably was, this is probably a lie to get me a Nathan, but she said, I dug that out, I kind of stumbled upon that, and look inside the cover there, and I opened up, and I had written my name, as a kid. It might have even been like 8 years old, baptism kind of thing. She said, that's yours, probably from when you was baptized or whatever, and I thought, oh, okay. And I had really enjoyed reading history and things as a 19, 20-year-old. And so I thought, I'm gonna take it with me, Mama, because in my head I thought, I've never read this thing cover to cover. I got time down in Chattanooga where I'm bored, not in class. Maybe I'll read this thing, see what it's all about. But I wasn't going to church. I hadn't gone to church 3 years at least. And so I'm in Chattanooga, man, and I pop it open that night, I think, within a night or two. I pop it open, and man, I, Nephi, having been born of goodly parents, I'm an emotional person, and I instantly tingled and went, my mom and dad, for all their faults and struggles and problems, they're good people. I've been born of good people. And I thought, wow, that was the moment, that far into it, I thought, there's something to this book. And you know, I didn't get through the first chapter without myself going, this is true. This is what I've been missing. Man, I read that thing in a week, cover to cover. And like the next weekend, come back to La Follette and go, hey, Mom, Papa, I'll go to church with you. I don't have any church clothes and stuff, but they were just like, okay, honey. And within a couple of Sundays of going back to church with them at the branch, all my childhood emotions, this is the branch I grew up in, all that's flooding back to me. And it's like, I'm home, this feels good, this is familiar, and I've just read this Book of Mormon, and it's true, and everything is coming, and I bear my testimony one of the first Sundays back, something about how, I read the Book of Mormon, and I know it's true, and it's good to be back, and I'm related to half of you, and I remember the rest of you when I was a kid, love you, good to be home. And so I was on my way. And my uncle and aunt had moved back here, and he, my Uncle Russ. Maybe I don't need to use a bunch of names, but my uncle, perennial leader in the church wherever he's lived, top level stakes, bishoprics, and a dynamic personality and speaker. He did what he should do as a righteous Mormon leader, especially to his nephew. Pull him in and say, hey, bud, good to have you here, good to be back. Hey, I was 21 maybe, or 20, almost 21. It's not too late to go on a mission. And I was like, oh, I'm too old. You got to be like 18 or 19, right? I'm too old. He said, no, on my mission, there's a guy 23 and 24. And I was like, well, went back to school in Chattanooga and spent that week. The only thing on my mind is, I think I should probably go on a mission. I called my mom and said, I think should go on a Mormon mission. And she was like, oh, honey, I don't even think you're going back to church or whatever. She was still a believer, but going through chaos, moving to Alabama and her new marriage, and sisters down there raising hell don't want to be in Alabama. By the way, they still live there now. But one of them's made her way back to Tennessee, but she lived there for a long time. And so Mom kind of talked me out of it. You're too old. This is like, you got to pay for it yourself. You don't have the money, and what are you going to do? And logically, I am a logical thinker, and I thought, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's this good thought. I'm past my time. But I went ahead and talked to my dad about it too, who was remarried and going to church, him and his wife, active, and living in Knoxville there. And he goes, bless his heart, he goes, oh, you're too old for a mission. You can join the Marine Corps. And as a kid, I was Rambo, man. I played Army guy. And so honestly, I thought, yeah, that makes more sense. I probably should just join the Marine Corps. So I wasn't convicted, but I had that testimony burning in me again. I go do another semester or whatever. And as I'm finishing up school, I moved back to La Follette, and I'm trying to figure out work and job and stuff. And I think I started a semester at Roan State, just going to continue education. It's what you do, figuring your life out. And I'm upstairs halfway through the semester, not enjoying English class or whatever. I'm like going through the motions, making good grades, but who cares? This is empty. And I pull out the Book of Mormon again, and I'm going to read it again cover to cover, because I'm going to church, spending every waking spare moment running the missionaries around from Jellicoe to Middlesboro. I am all over with the missionaries. And they're the same age as me relatively. And in fact, I meet a couple that are 22, 23, and I'm like, some of you dudes are older. And they're all just like, yeah, dude, fetch, yeah, man, it's not too late, dude. And I'm like, fetch, what's that? And I'm like, well, these are Mormon boys. I'm like, oh man, loving it. And they're like, and after your mission, you go to BYU, dude, the girls are everywhere, and they're just, all the Mormon return missionaries get all the dates. And I'm like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense, bro. And I'm seeing what I should be doing, all the positives, all the elevation, emotion, reinforcing, this is right for me. And cracked that cover open, and I, Nephi, haven't been born to goodly parents. And I just closed it and said a prayer right there and said, Heavenly Father, if I'm supposed to go on a mission, I really need to know it, and I'm willing to do whatever. I remember thinking, Jesus paid this price for me. I'm willing to do whatever I have to try and thank him. And if that's serving a mission, I remember thinking, I've got a dog. What will I do with my dog? And the thought was, you're going to let a dog stop you from serving the Lord and saying thank you and I'll serve? Yeah, I'll find a place to give my dog away, sell my four-wheeler. I got to do this. And I was convicted, even tears, and it was I have never felt that level of, that was a powerful moment for me that I still don't know for sure how to interpret it now, but it was a powerful moment then that changed my life, and started getting my paperwork ready. And I got my paperwork turned in. Then I called my mom and dad after I had turned it in. I wasn't asking their permission this time. I was telling them, Mom, my paperwork's already mailed in. I'm going on a mission. And I think I remember her getting emotional, crying, and she said, a year ago when you talked to me about this, and I have felt bad since that and didn't really know how to tell you. I shouldn't have talked you out of that. You need to, bless her heart. It's one of the best moments that she ever had as a mom, probably, and she's had some good ones, but to say, I should have never talked you out of something you wanted to do, that's powerful, And then with my dad, I was like, I'm going on a mission, paperwork's in. And he had the attitude of like, well, good for you, that you do what you think you should do. And I'm out on my mission trying to figure out how to pay for it. The La Follette branch is like, we'll sponsor you, get out of here. We don't want to waste any time. And I get a letter just a month into the mission field from Dad saying, hey man, he'd always wanted a Harley Davidson. He had a really pretty Road King that he asked me to drive a few times when he was on the road trucking, and I would take it to La Follette. Sorry, Dad, if you ever see this. Didn't have a motorcycle license. I drove it to Mama and Papa's house a couple times. Yep. But he loved that motorcycle, and he sends me a letter a month out in the field saying, hey man, don't want you to worry about your mission. I sold my motorcycle. There's more important things in life. I want to support you. And he was active, so to him it was a testimony builder, I'm sure too. And that's powerful to me. I was like, their church is true, my family's healing. I had a leader tell me once when I was reactivating, you're going to be the Brigham Young of your family. You're going to bring them all back. Because they were all, Dad was active, but everybody else, my siblings, out, inactive, levels of disbelief or whatever. I'm going to bring them all back. And wouldn't you know it, Mom's married to a non-member, but she's going back to church again. My sisters all come to church again. My brother's married in a situation where it was volatile with religion, but even he tried to come to church a few times. And I'm like, church is true, man. Things are working.
Okay.
That's where, into my mission anyway. So boy, I probably skipped a bunch and rambled a lot.
No. I love it. I didn't know a lot of that. And so where did you serve your mission?
Salt Lake City, Utah, baby. And let me tell you this. I'm this idiot who knows I can talk to God and he hears me and he's going to talk back. I had that level of beautiful, simplistic faith. And so I'm putting the paper packet together to mail it in or take it to the bishop or branch president to mail in. And I pray and say, Heavenly Father, now I'll go anywhere you want me to go. But my family heritage from Norway, it'd be awesome to see Norway and to get that lineage and be around those people. I've always admired the Vikings and all that. It'd be cool to go to Norway. And I literally said in my prayer something like, if you can't work that out, if that's not good enough, I grew up in this tiny branch, and I've been the Mormon kid in this school. It'd be so cool to see the church on a huge scale like Salt Lake City. I said that in my prayer. Wow. It'd be awesome to see a bunch of Mormons around this huge community. So, in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And I'm sitting at Mamaw's when the paperwork comes in, or Uncle Russ, everybody's gathered around there and they're all excited. And I open it up and it says, "You've been hereby called to serve in." And my eyes have scanned ahead already, and I see it coming. And my voice, I was like, "To Salt Lake City, Utah." And everybody, Aunt Dawn and them had lived out there and moved back. And so they were just like, "Yes." And I was like, God answers prayers. I asked for this. This is awesome. And today still, it's awesome to have had that experience. I interpret it differently now in some ways, but luck of the draw, I don't know. There is a God, and I needed that experience. I don't know, but it was awesome. Salt Lake City, man.
So, did you learn the language?
Thankfully, hanging out with missionaries here, I took fetch with me. I was already fetching, and they would call, instead of a movie or something, it'd be the show. And we're going to go to the show. I've lost a lot of it now, but boy, when I got home from my mission, my sisters are in the corner, like snickering and giggling. I was like, "What?" And they're like, "You kind of sound like Gramps' fence dad, who were the Yankees of our family. You kind of sound like Gramps and stuff. You talk weird." And I was like, "Yeah, been around these. I'm a chameleon. I think I just meld into wherever." To this day, still, I'll get a phone call, and I'll be like, some buddy from Campbell County, one of my best friends still lives up here, and I'll be like, "Hey man, what's up?" And my kids will be like, "Dad, you sound different when you talk to Kevin." Like, you can't get that hillbilly all out of me, I guess.
So what is a mission? Did you teach a lot in Salt Lake City?
And I immediately had people in the church who had served in Salt Lake. There was a couple people who were older than me but had returned missionaries, and they immediately started reaching out. "I heard you got your call to Salt Lake. Get ready. You're going to teach a lot." And I'm like, because I thought this would be cool, but what will I do? You're going to baptize, you're going to teach. And throughout my mission, whether this stat's really true or they just told us this, I know they told us we were the highest baptizing English-speaking mission in the world. Whether that stat's true or not, we were told that. But I do know, especially as I got into some zone leaders and stuff, had an opportunity to see numbers. Not one time in my 2 years did we baptize less than 100 people a month as a mission. I mean, as a mission in an English-speaking mission in America, that's pretty legit. And we were averaging like 130 to 150. But once or twice we got down to around like 105. And our mission president, would be like, "Unacceptable." He even bumped into President Hinckley in the temple once. He tells us this story. Could have fabricated it to motivate us. Saw President Hinckley in the temple, elders, and he said, "President Thorderson, how you all doing? How are you going to do this month?" And I told him, "We've got 115 committed. We're going to finish around 115. And he said, President Hinckley stopped and said, that's good. That's not good enough." And we were all just like, "Man, we gotta raise it up." President Hinckley knows our numbers. But we taught and baptized a lot. I was surprised how the membership in the Salt Lake City limit, especially, man, I think we were told like 25 or 30% of the population were LDS. And out of that, there's a bunch of less actives dating and marrying non-members who were moving to the valley and stuff. So busy, man. It was cool. We were busy.
So, did you run into much what we used to call anti-Mormon literature?
Stinking day. The first day on my mission, I had my trainers like, "Hey man, okay, you're up." And I was 23-ish, 22 when I left, I think. Get my numbers off there. But 21, 22 or turning 22 as I left, that 21 and a half, 22. Anyway, I'm mature enough. I'm not scared. And I'm a people person by nature, so I'm like, my trainer loved me for that. He's like, "Dude, you're easy, ready to go." And I was older than him, so he's looking at me like, "What do you think we should do?" Mr. Life experience. I'm knocking on the door though, in the very first person, I'm doing my spiel about Elder Finstad, my companion, representatives of the Church of Jesus Christ. And this guy interrupts me, and he goes right into, "Your church's doctrine on marriage has changed," and da-da-da-da-da. And I was just like, whatever, I'm trying to just be polite, but let me get my spiel out, man, and you're going to feel the Spirit and let us come in. I was pretty naive in that regard, but day one, somebody's talking about, your polygamy thing. Do you know about your history there? Right over my head. I'm like, whatever. He's an anti-Mormon, right? I'm walking away from that door talking to my trainer going, "Man, I'm surprised there's people out here that are that anti like that." And my companion trainer's like, "Yeah, you're going to see there's a lot of educated non-members out here or former members who know know their stuff. They think they know their stuff, but it's our job to set them straight. But man, day one, somebody's willing to try to tell me, hey, you may be off. Are you aware of this? No.
So did any of that stuff land?
No.
Or
Had a guy, I remember specifically, I wish I could find who this guy is and just thank him, because he was loving and sincere. He did the old, hey, missionaries, hey, come over here. And we're like, run across the road. He said, hey, would you guys come back to my house around 7 o'clock tonight? Let me get some stuff said. I'd love to talk to you guys because I got some questions. I've been reading a lot. And we're just like, yes, the golden. And we did have some goldens, so this is just another golden ready to roll. All of his neighbors and coworkers have got him prepared for us to just baptize, And we come in, sit down, and he goes into 20-year career in the Air Force. I was on some kind of covert flying. My job, we flew 12 hours a day, man, up there getting refueled. We were just circling the globe and doing radar imaging and all this stuff. And we were taking topography or shooting images into the earth and cataloging stuff. He said, and I've read your Book of Mormon, and I've heard about these great wars in America. And he said, man, there ain't nothing. Where Joseph Smith grew up, where he's from, he said, I have imaged where the Book of Mormon supposedly came from. There ain't nothing in that dirt up there. And I remember being like, whatever, dude, over my head at that moment. Yeah. But he went into some scientific details. Like, I spent a career in the Air Force doing this kind of thing. And at the time, didn't faze me at all. But later, when I start coming in stuff, I'm going, man, I had opportunity after opportunity to hear something, but was just faithful. I know this is true. I don't care what you have to say. It's not going to faze me because I know. Not in a braggadocious way. I was humble about it, but I know. Good for you, but I know. And as I walk away, I feel sorry for that guy. Maybe he'll figure it out one day, but I know. So.
Okay. Well, so far,
boring, huh?
So far, man, you got a testimony of the Book of Mormon. Your family was starting to heal. It sounded like on a mission, and then what?
Come home, serve my mission, awesome mission. Gosh, the stories just in that alone, getting to bump into general authorities and have President Faust buy us a milkshake, at lunch one day. We're sitting there eating, and sweet waitress is like, that kind old gentleman over there wants to buy you guys a milkshake. Oh, okay, thank you. That's President Faust. Still at the time, was he first counselor, second counselor? And so we went over, and he invited us over, and we shook his hand. And I was like, wow. This is awesome. So great mission, but I come home, and before I'm even coming home, Uncle Russ, he's a character in my life in a lot of beautiful ways. I love and miss him. He, as well as another cousin, is working on my wife, who has moved here, training horses, managing a 70, 80 stall horse barn over in Corryton, Tennessee. She's up to here in the equestrian world and a real professional about it, but it's got her living in Knoxville at that time. Hey, my nephew's coming home from his mission in a month. I'll introduce you. He's a great guy. And Emily's like, not interested in dudes, not interested in dating right now. I got careers and goals, and I want to go to the Olympics. I ain't got time for guys or anything. I ain't got time for friends. I got horses. But she's faithful, going to church. Here knows nobody. She's going to church every Sunday. In fact, the first time my uncle singled her out was at a baptism after church. It's my beautiful wife with that testimony, who comes from Pioneer. You need her here in her story. Goes home after church and comes back for a baptism to support the new member. That's my wife. But Uncle Russ is angling for my nephew's coming home, and my cousin's angling for him. My cousin's coming home. And they're telling me as soon as I get home, I'm welcome home, and it's, hey, got a girl, you should come to our ward Sunday. And I had, brother, I ain't the prettiest thing to look at, but boy, I worked hard on my mission, and I was personable, and tried not to be a phony, and that went a long way in Utah. I had, you can come live in our basement, we'll help you get to college, and I got a niece that you meet. You could come stay with here, and we'll give you a job. And I had a lot of people being like, Elder Finstead, we love you, please come back. And that's not tooting my own horn, it's just I'd made a good impression, and that goes a long way in life. And so thanks cousin and uncle, I don't want to meet no girls here, I'm going back to Utah. And I was saying that right when I got home. I don't know, if a month or two, I got to get back to Utah. I don't know if I'm going to I got a job and a place to live, and I'll get settled, and I'm excited. And so Scott, my cousin Scott, says, just come to church with me this Sunday. She probably won't even be there because she travels with horses, and our kids love you, and you're a good example to our kids. Come sit with us in the pew. And I was like, all right. But in my head, I'm also like, kind of want to see this girl, but I'll act like I'm doing it to be an example to your kids. Return missionary. And boy, we're in sacrament meeting, and he's doing this the whole time. And I'm sitting there just listening, and finally he elbows me and goes, "Oh man, she's here. She just came in, a little bit late in the back." And I was like, whatever, dude, I don't care. But as soon as it's over, the service is over, the sacrament's over, he runs me back to meet her in the under the basketball goal. And he said, "I'm going to introduce you to my cousin Nathan, and Nathan, this is Emily." And I reached out to shake her hand, and man, another one of those moments where, yeah, there's probably a God or something in the universe to make things happen, whatever it is. I'm not sure yet, but shake her hand, we talk a minute. There was a youth broadcast, a young adult broadcast that night that they were putting on in the chapel that they had announced. And I said, "You going to come back to I'm still missionary mode, like all the things. You going to come to the activity tonight? Because it's broadcast for us. We should be there." She said, "Yeah, I was planning on it." And I said, "Great, I'll see you there. We'll sit and hang out and talk and stuff." And she said, "Okay, see you there." And as she walked away, I turned to my cousin and said, "I'm going to marry that girl." And he went, "I knew it." And I said, "No, man, I just felt, she's the one I'm supposed to marry." And that was exciting. And as the day settled, as the evening settled in, I thought, it's a little bit scary. I want to go to Utah and date some Mormon gals. I got a lot of things to do in Utah, but boy, it changed. And we started talking that night. She left with a trailer of horses to Ocala, Florida, like the next day, if I remember. So we sat through that broadcast. I didn't get much out of it because I'm like, I really like her. She's pretty. She drives a big dually truck. This is this girl right here. And so she leaves that next day with horses, and we're on the phone the whole time she's on the road just talking, and within a couple months, I was like, I got to figure out how to propose that quick. The Mormon thing, man. And within maybe 6 months, as I remember, we were both openly going, yeah, we're going to get married, and we got to figure out how to not offend her parents, because they're like, you're going to the Olympics and you've got goals, and this, I'm going to be a problem, a monkey wrench in her plans. But within 6 months, we were both openly talking about it. Yep, going to get married, just got to figure out the logistics of how to make it work and plan it out. The Mormon way, man. Come back from the get married.
I'll tell you, she's a sweetheart.
Best thing I've ever bumped into in my life.
So that one was, you made the right decision on that one for sure. All right, well, the church has blessed you all kinds of ways with, your family and now your wife. So where does that take us? Years of service, right? All those years of, we're newlyweds, and within a year we find out, we were like, okay, maybe we'll let it happen if we're supposed to have kids. We're ready to do that. Which, looking back's foolish, man. All you newlyweds, enjoy some time dating and traveling and getting to know and loving each other for a while. And you can always have kids or never have kids, but man, have some time, have some years for yourself is my advice now. But I wouldn't trade my kids for anything, of course. But we got pregnant and lost a baby, and it was sad, but we thought, it's okay. This is the time. Going through that was kind of like, the timing's right to try. Because we're like, we're going to, it was a tubal pregnancy. So we didn't even know she was pregnant until she collapsed, and they took her to the hospital, and they're like, oh man, you've got a pregnancy here that we're gonna have to remove that situation. But coming out of that, getting over the initial, like, we were pregnant? We're supposed to try. We're wanting to be pregnant now. So let it happen and started having kids and serving in the church, and that's it. Calling after you don't say no. I was probably looked at by some people as, he's fishing for callings, because I would show up 45 minutes early to help set up chairs, because you serve. Not because I want a calling, but hey, if we all show up 45 minutes early, we can get the stuff, we can help, and then we can hang out and talk and you serve, man. Yeah. And so we were those people, stayed late to put stuff up, and my wife's looking for a reason to make somebody a casserole because you serve, and we were just trying our best to do the gospel, live and implement the gospel. Go visit some family members who were swimming, on family members who were in the church, and go home and like to sit in their pool and just hang out. And we are at the edge of the pool in our church clothes, 90 degrees, saying, well, we don't think it's really appropriate to, do what you're doing on Sunday, but no judgment, but we're just going to be more righteous over here, I mean, they know they shouldn't be swimming on Sunday, right? Gosh. Should we take our kids back over there? That's not a good example, because our kids are
coloring, and once in a while we'd be like, okay, you can let her get in, son, but get out in a minute. We're going to go home, and we're going to talk to you on the way home about how we need to be honoring the Sabbath. Man, we were trying to do the gospel, and we were doing it hard. For us, it wasn't to put on airs. We were doing what we thought God told us to do, the way we interpreted it, and the way, side rant, the way we heard it delivered from messages and messages. I was the guy who would read old conference talks and go, man, they need to reiterate some of this stuff today. And this is true. And some of the stuff is reiterated. So when you would find those things, like they're still reiterating this stuff today, this is the gospel. President Nelson, I don't want to offend anybody who's not offended to this point, but man, I heard somebody refer to him as, Russell Nelson. I heard someone refer to him as Rusty Nail, and I can't not say, oh, Rusty Nail. I loved that dude and loved his talks, and the one where he taught about tithing. You pay this much, and then you pay a little more, and then you pay a little more to make sure, because don't you want to be right with God? I never made $1 working my butt off, broke, and we gave so much money for our family, more than 10%, faithfully and proudly. And we're eating beans and rice, peanut butter and jelly for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because we'll go without. We're paying our fire insurance to the Lord. We love you, and this is a proof we love you. Here's our testimony. And man, oh man, that's who we were.
I mean, I knew you as faithful, do anything you ask, willing and ready to serve in any capacity. You had various callings.
All of them, from young men's, all the callings up to elders quorum, and then at one point, I'm called as a clerk to get into the bishopric to get that experience. And I don't remember how old I was, but it was, I'm late 20s, early 30s, whatever, right in that frame of late 20s, early 30s as I'm getting into those, oh, you're a clerk in the bishop, or I'm not a clerk, executive secretary, because I'm the bishop's right-hand man. And I was told when I got that calling, this is to help, you're going to be a bishop, and you need to pay attention, and this is a good chance to rub shoulders with a bishop and learn. And I was just like, I'm never going to be a bishop. I'm not a professional. I'm a laborer. I work. I mow grass and stuff for a living. I mulch yards. I work. Those aren't bishops. I'm not bishop material. And I'm proud to be a simpleton. I want to be a hillbilly in the woods. I ain't bishop. But I was told that, but I've honestly never bought into it, and I still don't know how that happened. But spoiler alert, that's coming, everybody, right? But, I spent my time in the bishopric, then get called to the high council, and that's the moment where I went, whoa. And my thought, whoa, nobody's willing to serve, that they have to ask me to serve on high council? Ugh. But I was told, hey man, you give good talks, and that's important as a high council. You focus on just trying to deliver a good message. And that probably went to my head for a minute, like, oh, I have to deliver now. And I hate that, because I didn't want to be a phony. But I tried to deliver as a high councilman a good talk, because that's what they told me you're supposed to do.
And you did.
Well, I didn't know anything about how high councilmen are also supposed to be coordinating with bishops and troubleshooting ward issues and going back to the stake. I was just like, got to give a good talk. Got to focus on good talk. Going down the road with the headphones in my ear, mowing yards as I did for a living when I ran my own business. Headphones in my ear, listening to conference talks and going, oh, that was a good quote, and running to the truck and writing that down. This conference talk in that month and year, I got to pull that quote out for a talk. That's how I'm living my day-to-day life, working. And came off the high council back into a bishopric as a counselor, and I was told directly then by the bishop, he said, God, I felt inspired that you're to be my counselor, and it's because you're going to be the next bishop. And again, I'm just like, no, and I got that throughout my time serving in a bishopric, that kind of positive, it was like a positive affirmation, like, hey, you're going to be the next bishop, I think, or you're going to be a bishop soon. So you need to be paying attention on how you would run things or your inspirations, because you're going to need to rely on that one. And so I'm grateful they tried to prepare me, but I didn't take it serious. I didn't believe it. Never thought, I'm a laborer. Bishops are professionals, man, and they need to be, because this is as we know now, a corporate church, and they need men with that experience. And that time finally came. We're going on vacation, family vacation out to Lake Powell to meet with my wife's family. If you've ever been to Lake Powell, man, awesome. We're excited about it. We're driving too. Got a big rental van where the kids got their own rooms practically in the back, sprawled out. It was awesome. And I get that phone call with, hey, stake president would like to meet with you. We're going on vacation. Well, It's important that you come meet with him. Can you please come see him before you leave? He'll make his schedule to fit your time. So we go in to meet with him, and it's the old slide the paperwork across. And like read, and at that point, I'm like, I know what this is. I've been told, and my bishop is getting bumped up to the stake here, so I'm taking his spot. I know what this is. And I go to read the paper, and it's, I forget the wording, but it was the first presidency is pondered and prayed and approved you as being called as bishop. And man, I just started bawling. I was like, I don't know if I bawled, but I was like, no, you've ruined my vacation. No. And was a cloud over us on vacation, because I immediately felt that weight. I'd watched the bishops around me. Losing hair is a normal part of life, I'm trying to keep the glare here off the camera from my hat, but I saw healthy men start to look less healthy after being a bishop a couple years. It's a weight. Thinning hairlines, twitching eyes. I'm not joking. Like, man, there's some stress going on here, and I'm glad I'm not a part of it. I'm just a counselor over here making sure the primary got out in time, whatever. So that come back from the vacation, and I'm called officially and set apart, and it's on, man. It's on. And from your experience that day, it was, here's all the people who need assistance, whether it's food or money or something, because they're struggling, and here's a person who's got a significant, in their worldview at the time, a transgression that is maybe putting their eternal life in jeopardy. And, you just got sustained in sacrament meeting 10 minutes ago. Okay. And didn't stop till I was released. It didn't stop.
So what year was that then?
Darn it. I should have put that down in my outline.
So I think I was 2013, but I think you were before me, weren't you?
Boy, I don't remember, because when the Gospel Topics essays came out, you might have been just before me, actually, because the essays came out, and bless his heart, the bishop I was serving as a counselor with, he came to Ward Council that Sunday soon around that time. So that was 2013 when those came out. And he said, everybody, I'm going to make you aware of this. And I'm not technical. I don't love technology. Good grief. I was one of the last to get a smartphone. I was flip phoning and texting, getting mocked by everybody. I didn't care, but he shows us how to get to it. And I'm watching him. He's got it on the screen, and he's navigating some clicks and some pushes and some moves. And I even at that time thought, I'm never going to go click through. I can't even remember what you're clicking to go find what you're trying to show us, Bishop. Whatever. Coming later on, I would realize, there's a reason you were having to click and go, and it was buried. Even in that moment, though, I'm like, why are you going to show us these tabs and these things? But bless his heart, he did say, I want to make you aware of some things. Churches published some stuff about, he just, in a positive light, history of the church, some further, anybody interested to learn further about our doctrine and history of the church. And I'm like, I am already busy working and church service. I don't have time for this, so I got a testimony. Thanks for the info. Good to know that's out there in the world somewhere. So that's 2013 when they came out. Mm-hmm. It was 14, 15 probably right in there when I was called. Because, Bishop served about 5 years. I came right up to that 3+ area, and because, what led to my release, cliffhanger, maybe people listen for a minute. I didn't serve the full 5, but we'll get to that in a second maybe. So 2014, 15-ish. I think.
So it's a weighty calling, a lot of time, a lot of extra time, before or after church, meeting with people, counseling people on matters that you may not be qualified to do. Is that?
At that time, I'm transitioning from running a lawn care business, a pretty successful one. I'm just a bumpkin out here mowing grass, and people say, you do a good job. You want to do my yard? And that built over the years into I'm working 50 hours a week mowing yards, and because of rain, a lot of that's I got to get it on Saturday, and I don't work on Sunday. So 50 hours a week mowing yards, and then I work part-time at UPS, 4.5 to 5, sometimes 6 hours every morning around 2 a.m. going into work. 50 hours a week mowing, and another 20 maybe UPS, and then another 20 church. Oh man, I'm running out of hours, and I love that. We all have the same hours in the day. It's what you do with them. Well, I'm at work in church with mine. What are you doing with yours? It was wearing me out, and from the moment go. And I'm a staunch word of wisdom guy. Would drink Coca-Cola, but it's like staunch word of wisdom guy. And I started going, man, this 5-hour energy thing is what's going to get me through sacrament meeting. Because I didn't sleep 2 hours last night, and I've got a 10-hour day at church today, and I got to be at work Monday morning at 2 a.m. 5-hour energy, and oh gosh, and the Lord's going to sustain me, right? And it was that throughout my time, just that. And I transitioned out of my lawn care thing into a full-time job at UPS, which is welcome to the world of cardboard boxes and 12 hours a day. So it didn't stop. Yeah, and I would not complain, but I would mention to the stake president during interviews or things like, man, I'm my job and I'm over and I'm busy. Yeah, I know, we all are. We're all busy, and the Lord will sustain you, and delegate it. Just delegate it. Yeah. Every bishop's told to delegate. What bishop can delegate? And now they're also the young men's president and the current. Whoa, you bishops out there trying to do that, man. Bless your hearts.
So other than kind of being run ragged, was there any other things during that time that kind of rubbed you wrong, or kind of caused any sort of doubts or anything like that?
I got a gift in the Christmas time from if my in-laws ever stumble into this, boy, they're good people. We've had our moments where I'm like, they're wrong about stuff, but they're good people. Man, I do love them. They're good people, and they work their butts off to be good parents and grandparents. And in that vein, my father-in-law sends me a book for Christmas in 05, when it came out, Rough Stone Rolling. And I popped that thing open, and he wrote a beautiful testimony in the front of it about how Joseph Smith wasn't a perfect man. I always admired this quote where he said, I'm like a rough stone rolling. And he gives a testimony about this book. It meant a lot to me, and I thought you would enjoy it too. And I was like, awesome. And I'm loving history, loving reading whenever I have a moment to read. I love it. So I crack that book open on whatever day I have a chance on a Sunday evening or whatever. And this is as I'm serving in the High Council or something at this point or whatever, early 2006 or whatever. I might be an executive secretary or young men's presidency. Whatever I was doing, I had time at that point to do some reading. But I crack it open. I get about 2-3 chapters in, and I'm like, honey, this book's hentai. What is your dad sending me? And she's like, I don't know what. And she's so busy being mama and stuff. I'm like, you should read it. And she's like, well, just tell me about what it's saying. Well, it's saying into some treasure digging and just some this is stuff that I've heard was not true. And why does your dad think this is a good book? I don't get it. Put it on the shelf. Like the literal shelf. I went, that book's going on our shelf because I don't like that, man. And from that moment on, it was just church service, church service, church. That's the one thing that rubbed me wrong, that bugged me. As a counselor in a bishopric, the Mormon moment, when Romney was running, the Mormon moment in the media, I don't even think I have an iPhone at that point. In fact, brace yourself, Mormons, the stake bought me as a bishop when I was called an iPad. Because the stake knew that bumpkin idiot doesn't have a smartphone. He needs to be connected to our stake to communicate. Here's an iPad you can use, okay? And I was like, okay, how you turn it on? So anyway, I've got my iPad, and I'm at home going, man, this stuff really is cool. The people are right. This is amazing. And my wife's like, screen time, honey. As I'm loving this tool I've got. And I stumbled into an interview Elder Holland did with the BBC interview where he's asked some very straightforward, simple questions. And I'm bracing myself like, oh, I love Elder Holland. Oh, what's this interview here? This is cool. And I watched this interview with total ignorance and naivete to what this has happened in this interview. And I'm watching it, and as it's unfolding, I'm on the bed alone watching this going, why does Elder Holland seem to look so stupid? And what's wrong? Why can't Elder Holland just answer? It struck me like, what's wrong with Elder Holland here? This is weird. And I remember closing it. I think I showed it to my wife too, and she was also like, yeah, she's so busy and distracted with I'm a mom and a wife, and I'm making a casserole for someone because I volunteered to teach 3 more lessons this week. She's go, go, go. It didn't strike her like it did me. I don't remember, but I was just bothered, man, it's not a good look. And in my head, I'm like, Abinadi was willing to be burned at the stake. Our apostles can't just boldly declare the truth to a reporter. And at that time, I'm like, a liberal reporter from England, for crying out loud. Be bold. What's wrong here? And so that struck me as weird. Those are the two things that I remember making me go, what's going on here? But everything else is just, if I ever have a moment of weakness, a moment of like needing uplifted or something, never doubts or anything, but if I need an uplift, put on a conference talk. Man, I would, a 20-minute drive from the house to my morning shift EPS, 20 minutes, I'm playing conference talks. Got the CDs, I'm playing conference talks. I'm all in all the time, man, reinforcing that loop. But those are the two things that as I look back and go, yeah, those made me go, huh? That's weird.
So would you say that you enjoyed your time as bishop, though?
No, I didn't enjoy it. And the weight was, I had members, people who loved me, people who support me, come to me and say, we can tell this, we're praying for you. We can tell this is a lot. We know you work a lot. I mowed yards for some people in the ward, and so, they saw me working and busting my butt and appreciated that about me. But I had people say they're worried about your concern for you. Delegate. Former people who were former leaders in positions would come to me with love and counsel, say, hey man, don't remember to delegate. I'm like, yeah, but there's another couple who's, about to get divorced and they want me to help them. I'll delegate that, right? Ugh. And some members would be like, yeah, go to the elder quorum president and recite president. But they don't want to talk to them. They want the bishop who has the keys, and they think I at least commune with God in some way to feel what God would have me tell them. And I believe that too, by the way, that's how it happens. Not quite sure how it's happening with me as bishop, but I am doing my best. And when I have a thought or hear a talk, that's God telling me that's what I should share with them. I never ever remember going, praying or pondering or fasting, going, I feel God telling me this. It was always, that makes sense. I'm going to use that to share with these people. Right. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah. Like working with, I asked you if you enjoyed it.
Didn't enjoy it. But it was rewarding to have youth. Sorry for not answering your question. When youth would say, I had some of the stereotypical youth coming because I've done a transgression that puts me in jeopardy of not going to the temple and my future mission or whatever, just stuff like that. And man, back when I was a counselor, the state did a thing where I remember on the periphery thinking, I'm glad I'm not bishop right now, because they were doing bishops, you need to ask your young men, not do you masturbate? You need to say, when's the last time you masturbated? And I remember going, I'm glad I'm not bishop, because I don't think I would want to do that. Whew, I'm glad it's not me, it's you, bishop. And then when I'm made bishop, it was reinforced. You need be more tender with the young women, but they need to be counseled and taught and encouraged too, and offered a chance to repent. Hammer those men, because these are future missionaries and bishops who got to be clean. And the standard and the bar had been raised during that period in church. Remember, we're raising the standard. And so as bishop, there were kids that had been traumatized from previous leaders. I don't know who, but there had obviously been some traumatization from them going through stuff. And they'd come to me just scared to death and sheepish. And they would leave me going, I'm going to tell my friends that you're so easy to talk to, because I ain't prying for details. I'm here. That was rewarding and fun to see a kid scared to death, freaked out, and me going, hey, stop. I loved pulling the story of when Jesus, the woman's caught in adultery, and he says, hey, whoever's without sin, cast the first stone. And then, woman, where are your accusers? Well, hey, go and sin no more. I love you. I loved. I had, in my opinion, a great way of making that real and like feeling like that's coming through me to you, young man or woman, and them going, and they would walk out, and I thought, that's the power of the gospel. And you know what, to this day, whether I'm a raging atheist or a converted Christian or whatever, that's still the power of faith, myth, and story, and human connection. That's beautiful. I did enjoy that part of being bishop. So I think it's proof I was doing some of it authentically.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Trying.
No question about that. So you were more of a spirit of the law guy versus a letter of the law, you think, when it comes to?
I was some of both for sure. I guess it just depended on the situation, because, I'm not going to hammer you and cast you out because you messed up, for sure. Spirit of the law there. But boy, Sabbath, keep honoring the Sabbath and word of wisdom and stuff, and tithing, letter, baby, letter. And as bishop, now I'll take to my grave sacred conversations, and whether my testimony of the church is totally gone or lingering or whatever, I ain't never going to divulge to my wife to this day still anything anyone ever shared with me, including as bishop. I'm handed the tithing stuff, and I'm going, I don't want to know what people make. But you have to declare, and you got to sign off on this, bishop. You got to initial. And I saw right then, oh, all of you have access to this if you want to get nosy and look, don't you? It just doesn't poof up to me. It's handed to me from other people and handed back, and entered in. I'm like, I don't like this. And I literally would, as fast as I could, when I would see the name of the person and haven't had the tithing declaration stuff, as fast as I could just initial and move and avoid seeing what they made, man. And that's the truth. It's me trying to be authentic and not be a phony. I didn't want to know what you made. But on that paper, in peripheral vision, it's hard to not sometimes, especially after years of doing it and years of maybe somebody coming and saying, I need help. And I'm like, well, we got to review where you're at with your life. I was counseled as a bishop. Someone asked for help. First thing you need to ask is, are you paying your tithing? Which doesn't make any sense in the world now. Oh, you can't pay your mortgage and you can't feed your kids and your wife's needing a surgery and you need help. Well, you paid tithing this month, right? That's the stupidest thing in the world now as I look back. But because of those situations, I had to start noticing maybe what some people paid, and I'm going, we got a nicer house and cars and vacations than me and my family, and I'm paying twice or three times as you paying tithing. That don't add up. That kind of crap creeped into my head, and I didn't like it. I didn't like feeling like I'm judging people or going, well, me and my wife are definitely paying more than our share of tithing because we're never made any money, everybody, but we paid more than our tenth, faithfully, letter of the law. And I saw a lot of people skirting that maybe, or not even coming close compared to their lifestyle. Well, that bothers me, man. Hard. I'm a judge now in Israel, but I don't want to judge people. And that was hard to see, some lifestyles and things. And I'm going, well, God, when are we going to get the blessing from all these years of giving you more than a tenth? And then we would, what's it called? We would gaslight ourselves with, well, we haven't had cancer, haven't had a tree. Literally, we live in the woods, haven't had a tree fall in our house yet, haven't had a truck break down in a while. My mowers are running. We're getting blessed. We're getting blessed.
So you said you were bishop for about 3.5 years. So you want to talk about why that was the case?
We got pregnant again, and this one was whoops. My friends at work were like, "Gotta stop sharing that bar of soap with your wife. That's how this happens." I'm like, man, well, it was oh no, and awesome. We're gonna have the best thing we've ever done is have kids. We got 4 of them, and still the best thing I've ever done is be a dad. Whether I'm good at it or not, man, I love it, and best thing I've ever done. And my wife's right there with me as a mama. So, we're pregnant, and okay, the shock's out of the way. We're gonna have another baby. This is awesome. And real quickly found that there was complications. I think it's called trisomy 18, if I remember, 19, I forget. But it was a genetic issue where the baby wouldn't develop correctly in the womb, and no % chance of survival. A lot of babies in that situation are born and don't live for minutes, kind of thing. And so we braced for that impact, and that was such a weight. Because we were excited. We were really excited to bring another baby into our family. And I'm bishop at the time. It's almost like it's about to start happening. The big Mormon family, God's gonna bless us with stuff, and like the lifestyle that looks like they're living the gospel, right? Prosperity gospel. And then that curveball comes, and the weight of it. Initially, the stake was good with like, hey, it's about take your time for your wife, of course, but you're still bishop. You got to delegate. And that never happens. And as we progressed along, my wife would be mad if I don't remember details here maybe, but got up into 6, 7, 8, up pretty far, 6, 7 months in that area. And she, if I recall it correctly, she notices like, baby's not moving, go for checkup, go get that checked out. And And they were like, well, you need to come to the hospital, and this is happening now. And so with that, all that happening, let me back up for half a second. I went to the stake and said, she's starting to get further along. We know we're not going to have this baby healthy. I am working 60 hours a week and 20 hours at church. I can't do this. Yeah. And I had a couple of those meetings where they said, delegate. We prayed about it, and God wants you to be the bishop and all that. And finally, bless his heart, good stake president, he finally said, it's time to release you as you and your family prepare for this. So I'm at that a little over 3 year mark. And part of me was just like, oh, I didn't make it to 5 years. Like, kind of a failure maybe, but screw it. This is gonna rock my wife for sure is gonna go through some trauma and stuff, and I don't need to be at church. I need to be home with her after this. So they schedule, go to the hospital, and have, she's still, it's called stillborn, right? I'm a hillbilly, man. Very sad, my wife carries some physical pain and discomfort still to this day from the physical trauma of kind of not a great experience with the hospital. All of her deliveries, man, were 100% natural. She's a warrior, prepared physically, mentally, emotionally to have our 4 healthy kids. And this one was thrust upon her, and she did whatever preparation she could, but with situations with how the nursing staff, some poor decisions or poor mismanagement of her, she's carrying some effects of that to this day, which is emotional for her from time to time. But thank goodness they released me. But that's why they released me. So we're at home now, recovering from losing the baby, and God bless the family. The organization of the Mormon Church is beautiful for saying, here's food, here's babysitting, here's what can we do, mow your grass, here's help. I wish that could be, the Mormon Church gets that right. I wish the world could embrace that culture better. But now I've got time, because we're released as bishop. She was released in whatever calling she had, and we're at home eating the meals people brought us, and just loving each other, feeling sad but grateful that we had a beautiful family service to bury the baby in the family plot. You and sweet cousin Amy, man, you really helped us a lot, and Fleet and Trey, helped a lot. Everybody helped a lot. I love all of them for that. I always will, and probably won't be able to express it to them fully the way it needs to be, but thanks for your help, Nathan and Amy and everybody. So we're coming off this traumatic loss of a baby with a real spiritual uplifting of we're an eternal family. And I even joked, probably some people were a little turned off by this, but I believed it. I said, we named him James, after my papa, and we call him Baby James. I said, little baby James punched his golden ticket. He's in such a kingdom. He got his body. He checked that box. He's there waiting for us. And man, that felt so good. It's like, we've got a baby there, for sure a baby there. And that's something to live for. And we sat our kids and had that conversation as a family. And it was exciting, uplifting. So as we're healing, going through this traumatic but spiritual thing, we're bonded tighter as a family, and it's wonderful. And we're going right back to church pretty quick, because we have testimonies, and Emily's strong, and we're here to serve. So we're recognized real quick as, well, you're not going to take a lot of time off. Give them a calling. So we're asked to teach. We're called to teach the youth Sunday school, and that's awesome, man. That's the best part of being a bishop. So my wife and I are going to team teach youth Sunday school. And I think my son, my oldest, he was in our class, I think, for a minute there, and that was fun too. It was a fun time. But I'm starting to study now, preparing for these lessons, and I've got time to study now because I don't have all the stake callings or bishopric callings. I can read again. I pull Rough Stone Rolling off the shelf again just because let me revisit this book. It's been on our shelf for 8 years or whatever now. I'm going to reread this, okay? Start going into it again. I'm going to skip those first 3 chapters because I remember them kind of pissing me off. Let me get somewhere in the middle here and start reading again. And man, I didn't get into whatever chapter it was. I didn't get through that chapter without going, what is wrong with this book? Who is this guy that wrote this book? this is making me angry, man. This is an anti-Mormon book. It's the way it was striking me. And so then I'm Googling stuff at this point in my life, finally catching up to the rest of the world. And I'm just starting to, like, Richard Bushman, man, look at his credentials. This dude is a faithful Mormon with a pedigree. He's a stud, BYU stud. I got to try to make this book work. And so I flipped through it off and on for some weeks as we're preparing lessons, and I'm just kind of, let me try this. And everything I'm reading, I'm going, yeah, okay, that was a decent point, but gosh, the feel of this book's just gross. And I'm telling my wife, would you teach the lesson this week and just let me make a point or two? Because I'm reading a lot and I'm thinking a lot. And, you know, I was the bishop. I taught the Sundays and gave the talks, and I kind of want to take a break from teaching. And my wife's like, sure, no problem, babe. You find me a quote and you share a point, object lesson, whatever. But I'm sitting in class listening to her teach the doctrine out of the manuals, listening to their canned responses, because these beautiful children from beautiful families were raised to give all the right answers. And it's starting in my head to go, is there anything, not wanting to be phony and wanting to be authentic? I'm sitting there going, this just feels so phony and inauthentic. And I'm reading more. I'm starting to drive a tractor trailer at work more than the package car stuff. And so those are like, you know, Atlanta or Nashville or Lexington. And to stay awake at night, thank the Lord for technology now, baby. I'm on point. I'm podcasting, history podcasts, sports podcasts, comedians, and I'm loving the world of technology. You hit play on something and drive for 3 hours, man. I love it. Well, my phone, sitting down there in the cup holder, you know, hands-free device, it would just say, you may like this, and suggest with things you've listened to, and I just hit play and be like, oh, that's cool. And by the way, I'm using a lot of conference talk stuff too. I would leave the building with conference talk, cool, man. And when that conference talk would end, I might listen to 2 or 3 conference talks. And then it might say a history thing, yeah, Civil War or World War II or something. And one time it said, you may like this. And I just hit play, and it was a returned missionary who had left the church. But he's got all the Mormon bona fides or whatever. He's got all, and I'm like, this guy's interesting. And I'm listening to his story, and he's talking about his mission. So the whole first half of it's just like, I served the mission here, and I was raised here. And I'm like, what's this guy? It's like a testimony kind of thing. What's this guy going to be talking about? Because I didn't look at the title, Mormon Missionary Leaves Church or something. I just said, you may like this. And I hit play, and I'm driving. And he gets into, and then I discovered this doctrine had been changed or altered and hid and da-da-da, and then the gospel topics essays, and I'm like, wait, what's a gospel topic essay? And as he's discussing it, I'm going, oh, I was in that bishopric meeting one time when the bishop said, hey, I want to make you guys aware of some stuff. That's what he's talking about. Huh. And so I'm home the next day, and I'm starting to Google and pull stuff up and go, whoa, there's a lot to read here that this weekend I'm going to get to. I'm going to look into some of this stuff.
You're starting to, you got long trips on for work, you got podcasts coming on, you're starting to kind of get blasted with some different point of views and different teachings, and now you're finding out, well, this isn't it's coming from the church website.
That night that I hit the First Vision Accounts podcast, history podcast, after that one, man, I hit stop. You know, you may like this episode. No, I don't want any more episodes tonight. I drove to whatever building I was heading to that night. Silence. This is the first time in years, from back when I'm mowing grass, listening to conference talks and stuff. First time in a long time I didn't have stuff in my ears or stuff playing in the cab of my vehicle. And I'm just silent. And I'm in shock. I'm like, good thing a monkey could do my job, because I was pretty out of it. Just like, stay focused and get there safe, man. So I get back home the next morning, and it might have been later that next day or whatever point, I said to my wife, hell, you listen to something here. I listened to something about the First Vision accounts of the church, of the First Vision accounts from Joseph Smith. And however I said it to her, I wasn't setting her up for failure. I told her, I said, it bothered me. I want to see how you hear it, how you react to it. And so I pushed play. And I guess I should share this too. When I finished that podcast and I'm driving in silence that night, I'm driving and staring out the window, and I can picture the mile marker 356 on 40 westbound to Nashville. I'm right there when I said, what if it's not true? Whoa. Never had that thought, never uttered those words, but whoa, man, these accounts, there's a problem here, and why? That's why silence. And that's just leaving Knoxville. So I went all the way to Nashville and all the way back in silence, just thinking, wondering like, what, whoa, man. And so the next night or whatever, really soon when I get home, I'm telling Emily, will you listen to this? See how you hear it? Maybe I'm mishearing some stuff here. Push play, set the phone on the bed, push play, and she sits down on the floor and we're listening. And I'm hearing it again now, second time, and the second time through this podcast, and I still don't remember what podcast this was. Don't know who the people were talking on it. It might have been Bill Reel. Bless his heart, man. He's done the Lord's work sifting through stuff. Might have been something from him, but it was 2 or 3 people with him. There's 3 or 4 people on the podcast talking. And so I'm listening to it the second time, and I'm going, it's as bad as I heard it the first time, man. And not talking to my wife and influencing her, just kind of shoulder to shoulder, but in my head I'm going, it's as bad. This is bad. Gosh, it's worse, I think. This is bad. And I kind of look over to her 15 or some odd minutes into it, and she's starting to cry. And she's like, what is this? I've never heard this in my life. What is this? And I explained to her, I don't know, push play. You may like this episode, and I push play, and have you ever heard of any of this stuff? No. This is anti-Mormon lies that there's the churches. This is from church sources. That's what they're saying. And so at that point, it's easy to go scroll and see what's connected in the internet world. And man, Mormon stories. What's that? Well, I've got a 12-hour shift tonight. I'm going to push play and just go, what's going on here? And it didn't take me long to go from my wife's homeschooling, just kicking butt as a mother and wife, carrying on other activities and hobbies and things, just working herself crazy. And I'm on the road 12 hours a night going, just downloading information. And I'm texting her from the road or wherever I'm stopped or getting back the next morning going, you need to look at this and read this and listen to that and this and that and that. And she's like, you just gave me 27 hours of stuff and I've got to cook dinner. I can't keep up with you. And so she had to be like, I will try, but you're way ahead of me. And I'm like, obviously, I got the time to do it and you don't. And, everything I kept listening to just kept confirming and reinforcing. And the leaders' contradictions, which are there for the world to see. If you're willing to see, they're there. I couldn't gaslight myself. And I was disgusted. And very quickly, I went from that first night of going, what if it's not true? Within a week of going down the road, looking at that windshield, going, bawling, going, it's not true. This isn't true. How could it not be true? This doesn't make sense. What about my mission? What about the blessings? What about when I read the Book of Mormon? But what about what I'm hearing here? You can't square that. You can't square that circle that square. The analogy's messed up. And so quickly I had that thought, this isn't true, and how can it not be true? And I just kept listening. And a lot of people might say, well, in fact, I'm going from podcast to conference talk. Okay, Elder Bednar's talk on such and such. There's something in here that's going to help me realize that, okay, it's not true, and I'm going to listen, and and man, I would push play on a conference talk. I couldn't get 5 minutes into it because I'm like, this is absurd. Because once you see the train crash, you can't unsee it. Once you see the blood trail and the trauma, you can't unsee it. And so it's all there on the church's website, in the church's publications. And man, I am sifting through and I'm listening to not anti-Mormon John DeLynn and Mormon stories. I'm listening to Richard Bushman, who gave a talk. I'm listening to Elder, who? 6 years, man. 6 years, and I have forgotten more in 6 years than I used to be able to rattle off some details, and I was doing it because I'm prepared to argue at Thanksgiving and say this date and that quote and that book, and I could do it for a minute. But 6 years into this journey, it's like it's starting, and I'm glad it's starting to leave me a little, and I don't go around waiting for the fast, drawing the facts. Right. I'm glad. It's healthy to say, just let it go. But I used to recall this stuff. And one of the general authorities, who was the church historian, said at the University of Utah Valley State or somewhere, that the best and brightest of the church are leaving. This is the worst era of apostasy since Kirtland. I forgot which one it was. I want to say Marlon Jensen.
Yeah, I believe it was.
That blew me away. And of course, I'm like, they need to play that in conference and let everybody hear the truth that they're saying. They can't play that at conference because it does this to people. They go, what? But I'm finding stuff like that out of the mouths and words of the men that I'm sustaining, that I think visit with Jesus in the Salt Lake Temple on Thursdays. I served my mission in Salt Lake. We got to go to the temple every P-Day. I went to the Salt Lake Temple hundreds of times, I guess, a lot. And we would, man, not joking, we'd be like, wonder when the last time the Lord walked through this room. I wonder when the last time the prophet and the Lord had a visit here in the temple. That's the reality of our church, our doctrine. That I believed that literally. And that's now, I got leaders going, best and brightest are leaving us. And by the way, I'm not the best and brightest, but I'm riding on the coattails of the best and brightest who are going, this don't jive. And I'm not playing charades anymore. And so I quickly went into, this isn't true, but how could it not be true? And Emily, my wife's doing the same thing with, it's not true. We're teaching Sunday school still. And I'm going, holy crap, how do I go to church this Sunday? We're sitting through sacrament meeting, hearing a quote or a doctrine that I listened to a 10-hour podcast this week explain how this was fabricated or that was changed or that was, and I'm going, that's not true. And we're being spoon-fed, and everybody's being spoon-fed stuff that the B.H. Roberts, go back and study what B.H. Roberts uncovered in 1910. Yeah. They knew in 1900s, 1800s, that's not true history. What are we doing here? Right. You can't sit through those meetings for long without losing your mind. So we had to go to the bishop at that time and say, who's a dear friend and a great man and one that would hug each other forever, be like, love you, brother. Go to him and say, I need to be released. Oh, what? Okay. Yeah, I just need a break. And this is on the heels of losing the baby. Yeah. So we taught for maybe almost a year because late 2018 is when we lost the baby. We teach through 2019. It's about July of 2019 when we have the it's not true moment. So a few more months, maybe we lasted, and I'm like, I can't teach this stuff. Okay, give him a break. And so for about 3 or 4 months, we don't come one Sunday. And got to the point where family reaches out and says, hey, people are asking about you guys. Why don't you come to church? And I'm still every night playing podcasts going, oh my gosh, there's so much to learn. And I got to download this so I can regurgitate it to people if they ask, or I'm going to save some people from what I'm going through here or help. And family's going, people are asking about you at church. And I'm thinking, why don't they call and ask me why I'm not at church? Mm-hmm. Because I was that Mormon sometimes. Hey, we haven't seen so-and-so in a while. I wonder how they're doing. We should reach out to them. And you're busy. But now that I'm where I am, I'm going, why don't you call and ask me where I am? I was your bishop and a bishopric member prior to being bishop, and then a bishopric as an executive secretary for a year or two for that, and a high councilman. I've got, I don't know, do the math, I've got damn near a decade of like busting my butt, as inept as I am, but I'm trying to be not phony and authentic for you guys in the name of the Lord, because this is true. And now me and my family, my kids aren't going anymore. In fact, I remember the Sunday that I told them, I'm not going back. She said, I don't want to either. But your son is getting the Melchizedek priesthood in 2 weeks. And I said, I can't go through the motions and be phony. Not even to fake it because family I said, I can't do it. I'm telling you right now, honey, I'm sick that day. I'm not gonna be able to go. So, I think my dad, did it for him there in the bishop's office. I didn't go to church. My wife's a soldier better than me. She gutted it up and went through the motions and sat there. But then after he got the Melchizedek priesthood, he wanted to bless the sacrament. And after he blessed the sacrament that first time, we sat the kids down and I said, guys, I can't go to church anymore. And they were like, what's going on, Dad? Well, my oldest is an intellectual kid, gifted with a brain, man. And I said, I won't let you listen to something, because he was the kid at 5 or 4. Okay, Christmas spoiler, Santa Claus coming up for kids in the room, anybody? 3, 2, 1. At 5 or 4, he went, Dad, come on, Santa's not real, and here's why. And I'm like, no, buddy, come on, there's Christmas and your little brother, and shut up. You know, he was that kid who's like, yeah, it makes sense, and let me tell you why. So he could handle stuff at an early age. So I said, let me share something with you. And me and Emily sat down and tried our best to say, here's what we've discovered, and it contradicts what we've always been taught. And the other kids lingered and go, what's going on? And we're like, let's just have a conversation, because we got them going to youth activities and we're just going to quit going. It's going to be confusing. So we got on the same page just in the room there and had our conversation. And my oldest goes, you know, I've always thought, I remember in primary thinking, what if Joseph just made this up? And my wife and I are like, what? And we're looking at each other going, did you ever think that in your life? No. Did you? No. And he's going, yeah, I remember sitting in primary going, he could have made this up. I could make up a religion. I like stories. I could write a story. And I'm going, holy crap, from the mouth of babes. And then our other two, it was a little bit emotional for them, because my other son had a tight-knit group of buddies at church. And my daughter was excited to be in Young Women's coming up. So it was harder for them, but they very quickly were like, if this is a lie, or if they're lying to us about stuff, then I definitely want to take a step back and figure out what's going on. And we did the whole, we'll support you, we'll take you, we'll let you go. These are good people, good friends, good morals. But we're not doing it anymore, kids. And that's how we quit going.
You hadn't been back since probably, or?
No, there was that period of hearing that first podcast on the First Visions. And that was a quick one from that. That's one still to this day that my wife, I can't tell her story, but I've heard her say before, boy, that's the one for me that was like, what? If there's problems with that, or contradictions with that, or issues with that, it's all founded on that. So I was like, okay, whatever, that's bad. This book of Abraham thing, what the heck is going on there? That is the biggest slap in the face to common sense and logic, and the church trying to dance around that one still to this day. But they've all lost that argument, and they're quickly free. And I started thinking, man, when's the last time I would pull stuff from Before the Great Price in a talk? Because I love that book. Love the Doctrine and Covenants in sections. Some of it's boring drab, but I would read it, try to read it faithfully, and I would pluck stuff out of it, man. And I would sit and criticize in a healthy way. I'd be like, we don't pull from this enough, man. No one's quoting this enough. I'm a bishop. I'm going to pull from it and quote from it. So to have that absurdity exposed to me, and the church members who have acknowledged, yeah, problems there, but here's a way to try to make it work. I want to make it work. It is true. Or President Hinckley's quote, I would testify to the youth, I would testify at the pulpit and say, I'm proud to say what President Hinckley said. It is either the greatest fraud ever perpetrated or the best, most beautiful truth the world's ever known. And it's our responsibility to declare it as the truth and to share it with everyone. Well, and it's an obvious fraud now, and contradictions is like, well, it's not the greatest truth and most beautiful thing now. What are we going to do with it now? Well, here's how you can make it work. You don't make truth work. It is. So I'm not going to try to make something work. It better and will be true for me to declare that I know or believe this. I don't know my wife loves me, but I have a ton of experiences and true experiences with her that I can believe in that truth. But she may not love me. She might be perpetrating a fraud all these years. But there's enough evidence there to say, I know the truth and the things I've experienced. So with the church, it's like you take all these things that you know, because it's been prepackaged and delivered in they have refined it for all these generations. And we're born and raised in it. And when you step outside that facade, holy crap, I can't make that work. I can't make it work. Some people do and can and try, and man, I'm not going to say you're wrong for doing that to anybody, but boy, I can't make it work. We would go to a couple sacrament meetings when we got released from the calling, but we're going through I don't think this is going to work for us anymore. And the first Sunday after we said, I don't think this is true, let's take the kids to church, praise to the man, and I loved that song my whole life, but as it started off, my wife starts bawling, and I'm going, ugh, this song sucks now, and I don't want this song to suck now. And after sacrament, people are coming over and they're, hey, good to see you guys, because we'd missed some Sundays, but we tried to come back with the kids and all that for a minute there before leaving. And I had people being like, oh, is it the baby? Your wife's still hurting from the baby. I'm like, that was 8, 9 months, 10 months ago. It still hurts, and it's going to hurt forever losing the baby. But it hurts now because we don't think we're an eternal family like the church told us we were an eternal family. That's what hurts now. She's crying about not the baby. She's crying about a lot of other things. You know, I didn't say that to them. When they would say, is it the baby? I just go, yeah, it's just hard. It's just hard. I was told by more than one bishop and a bunch of my counselors that, man, you and your wife are pillars in this ward. And I never once went like, yes, we are. I was always like, ugh, that feels icky. I'm just a laborer, phony dude who tries hard. I want to be authentic and not phony. But thanks for the compliment. Ugh, it never felt good. But on the other side of this thing, and we're not going to church now, this crisis of truth, it wasn't a crisis of faith, it's a crisis of truth. The church has got a problem, man. I still have faith in a lot of things. It wasn't a crisis of faith. But I'm looking at it from the perspective of, wow, we're such pillars. For 10 years we've been told, thankfully for you guys to show up and you serve and you're such pillars. And boy, they sure don't need us holding up a pillar portion of the building right now, do they? Well, I mean, it was lonely and angering. And by the way, you know, full disclosure, I put a gate up in my driveway when I was called as bishop. A gate went up at the bottom of my driveway because right when I was called, someone comes up my driveway looking for bishop. It's like, oh crap, your information's out there and people can find out who the bishop is. And so right as I'm called and see this, I'm like, hey, if you're going to come to my house, stop at the gate down there and call. And we've got guard dogs, so you can come on up if you want to test your skills. But man, I was like, I'm putting a gate up because I kind of feel vulnerable now. So on the one hand, I got a gate up down there, but on the other hand, there weren't any members coming to the gate going, hey guys, how are you? Miss you? Or I don't expect people to go, why did you quit coming to church? But I thought a few people, and there's a few. If anybody who ever called watches this goes, well, I called you. There were a few. But man, I mean, there might have been two men that called, men I served with. Yeah. And then just a handful of women my wife's on Facebook, so communicate or reach, or, you know, how you doing, miss you, kind of thing. But boy, the silence was deafening. When we quit coming, when we asked to be released, and we haven't come for 3 or 4 months, and I got a family member going, people are asking about you guys, and I'm going, why don't they call and ask me why I'm not coming? Bishop reaches out and says, hey, can you come in and meet with me? And I'm kind of feeling, that's when I'm pretty sharp with all my points. I'm like, yeah, I might want to come have a conversation, Bishop, because first of all, I want to argue and get some stuff off my chest I'm angry about, man. And honestly, you might need to hear some of this too. I don't know if you're aware of this stuff, and I want to know if you know this stuff. How do you deal with it, man? How do you make it work? So we get calling in the bishop, and my wife and I are sitting there, haven't been in church. And by the way, when we show people are like, oh, we've missed you, good to see you. And I'm like, yeah, well, we live at the same place, and you haven't missed me for 3 months or whatever. We've been on. Bishop, after sacrament, he's like, hey, my counselors and I have been contemplating you in prayer. And I'm just bristling, going, he's going to extend a calling, which I knew that's probably why he wanted to see us. But I kind of thought maybe he's going to say, how you doing? Where you haven't been coming. Are you okay? I was hopeful that maybe that's what he'll ask, and that's awesome. I want to talk. I need to get some stuff out. I need help. I'm going crazy. I'm not suicidal, but darn it, I'm feeling scary thoughts. Been prayerful, and the Lord has confirmed that you're to be called as the gospel doctrine teacher. And I went, what? I got some doctrine I can teach good gospel, but no, I can't serve in that calling, and that's proof that God doesn't inspire you. Because this crap's a fraud right now in my worldview, and God wants me to go in there and just read out of the manual and strengthen my testimony back to the facade I've discovered. No, I can't. And I got angry, and then I started crying. I was like, because I didn't want to be angry at him, and all this stuff's pent up, and I'm crying, and he's like, whoa. It took him aback. And he looks at my wife, and she's crying. And you could see the look on his face of like, oh, whoa. Maybe I didn't feel the inspiration that this should be your calling. That's going through his head. He's like, what's going on here? And I said, Bishop, I always thought the world of you. I don't want to share anything with you that'll damage you or hurt you. But have you heard of gospel topic essays and the problems of the book of Abraham? And I just listed a few things. Have you heard of any of this stuff? And he's like, no. And I said, well, I have. And there's some problems, and it's rocking our world. And he went into, well, I know the Book of Mormon's true, and I know, and he just gave me a canned, I don't mean sincerely, a canned testimony that we give, we're trained to give, and he had all the points. And he ended in the name of Jesus Christ. And my wife and I were just like, okay. And he got up and hugged us and opened the door, and we went down the hallway, and it's like, and my wife's like, let's get the kids and go home. It's like, yeah. Where is the discernment, Heavenly Father? That's the best you could give this man who's the bishop? And I was a bishop with the keys, and I remember going, oh my gosh, I don't think I have discernment, but I'm trying hard, and that makes sense logically. I'll counsel him this way. And it's like, boy, that would have been a good time for the Lord to say, here's some discernment for you two faithful people married in my temple, following my covenants the best you can, trying hard. Just flatline. Like, wow, that was the nail in the coffin at that point. One more Sunday, his counselor, who was my counselor for all my time as a bishop, and I still love the dude and respect him, although that respect did take a hit. When this is the guy who was like, man, I'll go to war with you. We're brothers. Yeah, outside of church, man, you're my guy, and I admire you, and you're a good dude, Nathan. And I was like, appreciate that. You were too. I don't want to mention a name, but people can probably put, who are his counselors? I loved them all, and they were all good men, but this one was like, I'm a ride or die with you the whole time I'm bishop. And really helped and encouraged me and took a lot of the load. Love him for that. Calls us in, and in fact, he called us in to say the bishop wants to meet with you about the calling. So we met with him first. And when he said, hey, you guys haven't been in a little while, but we've been contemplating about a calling, and the bishop wants to talk to you about it, but I just want to see how you're doing before. And I was like, man, I've come across some stuff. And as I mentioned, have you heard about the Book of Abraham issues? Because that was the one with me that's like, can't ever resolve that, man. Never going back on that. And first vision issues and yada yada. And he goes, whoa. Because he's got family members who have left. And I knew that he had family members who had left. And I was kind of hoping he'd be like, oh, I have heard of some of that. But he went, whoa. I've got a good life. I've got a good marriage, happy family, and I don't want to hear anything that's going to disrupt any of that. And I, at that moment, went, are you kidding me? And not in my head. I just smiled. I smiled and went, I get it. Because I do get it. I didn't want to harm you and blow your world up. Look, you don't know what we're going through, man. But in my head, I'm going, are you kidding me? Mr. Ride or Die. Go to war with me. You can't face this scary stuff. And it is scary, but dude, I haven't talked to the guy since. I haven't reached out to say, hey man, old times, how you doing? Because it's awkward. And he might have texted me once to say something about, I think your sons want to come to the youth conference or something. We're having an activity, because he was involved with the youth, and our kids for a minute would go on Wednesday nights even when we quit going on Sunday. So maybe a text or two from him about kids and activities. But that's it. And when he was released and we were totally out, nothing, man. Just fine. Fine to a degree, but I carry some of that scar of, wow, that's a problem in human nature. And when religion gets involved to the point of dogma being so strongly enforced that, oops, stop right there, can't hear it, stop thought stop techniques, I can't, nope, I'm happy, leave me alone. Okay, we'll go over here and be alone and miserable, but glad you still got your life together. But someday you might hit that pothole in the road too and have a tire blowout of the spiritual journey. And it's like, I'll be on this side of it waiting to say, I get it, man, this is hard. You don't have to go through it alone. But boy, we went through it alone for a while. And we're still, there ain't many people around here, are there, who are publicly, openly, and for a minute, I thought, let's move to Utah where all the ex-Mormons live. I was like, no, I want to stay in Tennessee. I'm like, I do too, but there's groups of people out there that get together and hang out and do vacations, and they got communion. We don't have anything here. And my wife had friends on Facebook that started noticing some subtle comments. Emily's very subtle stuff, but to those, we got friends who have been praying for us for years, and when they notice something off and subtle about Emily's comment, because Emily just subtly be like, I read something that changed my opinion on something. And they'd be like, oh, come to church with us Sunday. We've got a great family, church family, and yada, yada. And it was like, we're recruiting you to our church. And we very quickly were like, we've had the greatest church in the history of the world, the greatest family and family friendly. It was the greatest church in the world. We don't want any more church right now in the man-run religion. Nah. And my wife made a profound comment. She said, early on into this faith crisis, she said, I will never let a human being ever stand between me and whatever I perceive God to be ever again in my life. It's between me and whatever that entity is that touches me or that I reach out and figure out how to discover. It's between me and it or him or it, whatever. Anthropomorphic beings in the sky. I don't know what God is or isn't, but she said, that's between me and it. I'm never going to have a human tell me what God would have me do. And I thought, hearing her say that, I thought, I can't believe that's what religion does. Yeah. Somebody stands between you and the gatekeeper and salvation. What? Read the New Testament, dude. Jesus was the salvation. If you want to believe and have faith in Jesus, man, that's a powerful story, mythology, truth. There's historical problems with the Bible too, but that aside, you can at least dig up remnants of coins and spoons and shoes and things from the literal days Jesus supposedly was walking and teaching. So I can kind of believe in some of that history a little more than Book of Mormon history. Yeah, well, someday they might find it. Yeah, well, I don't have any more time to waste for someday. Someday's not on any calendar I've ever owned, man. Today is on a calendar. I hope tomorrow's there, but I might not wake up tomorrow, man. So stuff got real for us. And our marriage improved tenfold instantly. I could not believe going through trauma together. That's why the military will train men and women in a situation of suck so that you come out bonded on the other side. So some of that we were bonded through our shared trauma, and I don't know how couples go through this with one believing and one not, and I don't know how any of them could ever stay together. I don't know how they make that work. Thankfully, she was with me, and we were going together on this trauma train. But as we came out the other side, we realized it's not the trauma that's bonded us. Because you question, what God prompted us to get married. We were obviously brought together in a church, in his chapel, introduced. So if God didn't maybe do that and we weren't prompted, why did we get married? Because the Mormon things put us together and we did the Mormon plan. That's why you were there and I was there and it was convenient. That's why we could have easily gone down that path. And we flirted with like, oh man, what's the meaning of anything? But I very quickly said, I still want you and I love you. Hope you want me too. And she's like, oh, I do. And I was like, wow, how lucky are we? And our marriage has been better, still with its problems, but I mean, people argue and it's like, you're a great cook, but everything else, you're pissing me off today, hon. And she's like, well, you suck at everything too. No, she never says that to me. She wants to. But man, our marriage, it's just more honest, authentic, and real, and it empowered her overnight. Not like, I'm going to burn my bras and tell you a thing or two, but she's like, oh my gosh, I really said the priesthood rules, and you are the priest in our home, and I yield to the priesthood. That's gone now. I can say, I agree with you because I think that's a good idea. I disagree because you're not considering this point. And she would talk that way when I was the priesthood holder too, but ultimately, man, she's going to follow the priesthood chain of authority and instantly improved our marriage. We lost our eternal marriage to gain our relationship. Unbelievable.
I love that. I love that, and I mean, the same thing happened with us. I just saw us being more authentic, more honest in the things that we could say. We didn't have the boundaries of the church, of the doctrine, and I could express doubts in something, or I don't really agree with that, and it's been night and day.
There's no fear of offending or disappointing. It's just like, this is me in all my rawness. And think about a married couple. You've seen each other in rawness a lot, but there's still like these in the Mormon church for sure. There's these stereotypes. You got to fit this role, and boy, I was forever not living up in my head. It's like, I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as so-and-so, or not as spiritual as so-and-so, and not providing like so-and-so does, and not leading the way I should in my home like so-and-so does. And I have heard sacrament talk after sacrament talk for my whole life. when I was a missionary in Utah, they gave these talks, and back here in Tennessee, they give these talks. Women getting up going, you know, my kids aren't as good as such and such's kids in the pew and dressed as good as so-and-so's family, and we're trying hard, but it's like, man, quit trying to live up to the standard of keeping up with this facade and image of Mormonism. I wish we could all just be this raw and honest with each other, come what may, and love it, you know. We're not all going to agree, but we can agree to disagree and then still have a burger together, you know. And even politically, yeah, I'm still a redneck conservative from Tennessee. Sure, I love so many of the principles of conservatism, but man, there's some things in the old, and by the way, having two sides, get out of here. There's more than two sides, liberal, conservative. No, it's called a gray area of life, and there ain't no one size fits all. I have had my eyes opened up to, live and let live. Here's my standard of judging people now. When I was a Mormon, I had the standard of the gospel of how to judge, and you're going to kingdom of heaven or hell, okay. Now it's, when I judge a human being, it's, can I trust this person to feed my dog when I'm out of town? Then they're probably a pretty good person. If I can't trust you to feed my dog, you might not be a person I really want in my life. How's that a standard of, do I want this human in my life? I can trust them to feed my dog for me and get my mail. That's probably a decent person to have a relationship, friendship with. That's my standard now. Versus, they're drinking coffee. Oh, kids, look away, because you know that's the sin of that's the drink of Satan, and that's a slippery slope when you start looking at people smoking and drinking coffee. It's like, man, who cares about that nonsense?
Man, so it's been 6 years out.
It was the end of 18
Here we are.
that I started, and then the 19 was the roller coaster, and what are we in 2024 here winding up? And yes, I'm starting to forget stuff, you know. In fact, your phone will tell you the things you listen to the most, you know, and my phone's going through that right now, you know. And for years it was Mormon stories, man, number one, and then some Mormon discussion, the Bill Real stuff, number two. And they're probably, I did look the other day, and I thought Mormon stories, I pulled it up, they were top 5 still, but that's because they're falling though. They're falling. I still love Radio Free Mormon and Bill Real. Snarkiness and a little bit, I like it. And it's a short show. I can pop that on a Wednesday. I think it comes out Wednesdays. I'll pop that on when I'm leaving for work or when I'm getting in or something, pop it on while I'm working out or something, and get a chuckle or a laugh. But I'm finding more and more, and it's 6 years in. And I heard John DeLynn say once, it's about a 10-year span of restructuring your life and your thought. And he says there's a 10-year window of it. He talks about how I'll lose people at around 10 years who are just like, I don't care anymore and don't even want to know. You know, and I'm 6 years into it, and I'm like, I'm not actively trying to forget or push away or move on. I'm just learning and living my life, and as life evolves around me, I am realizing I don't get as angry, still get frustrated. I still want to hear Radio Free Mormon's recap of conference. I'm like, what'd they say? Anything crazy? Okay, nothing real crazy, okay. And there's a crazy part of my brain that still wants to go, what did they say in conference, and are they gonna figure out how to make this thing healthy and good? Because this church is awesome when it's not got the dogmatic stranglehold on people's lives, man. The individuals who came to my office when I was bishop struggling with what normal people are just figuring out how to live life in college or finding their first career or struggling to date in their early 30s. Normal people go through those kinds of things. When you got a woman who's 28 years old, 30 years old, still not married, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. And oh my gosh, I went on a date with a guy, and we were attracted to each other, and oh, I've ruined my life, and oh my gosh, I'll never be married in the temple, and oh wow, the church is why you're miserable, because of that standard. If you were just out there living a normal life, you'd be going through what we call life. Yeah. And you can go through life any way you want. You don't have to have sex with people. You don't have to get married. You don't have to date. You can date everybody. You can go through life the way you want to go through life. The truth will set you free, and freedom's scary, man, but freedom's also just beautiful.
So you mentioned, trying to find out if the church is how they're gonna change and adapt and try to correct some of these things. Did you hear the other day that they've rewritten the introduction to the Book of Mormon?
No, I had a phone call with I'll just say a family member, because again, I don't, a really important family member called me last night, who's not believer, not active, but called me just last night and was wanting to tell me about something else. And we ended up talking about 2 hours in the driveway, and it was awesome. I needed to have that conversation. It was fun. We cried a little, a little emotional, laughed a lot. But in that conversation, this family member said, "Hey man, did you hear they changed the introduction to the Book of Mormon?" And in my brash assumptions, I thought he's talking about back in 2008. Right. And I was like, yeah, that was one of the things that really ticked me off about the church. And I went on rambling, and talking, and we just kept talking. After we hung up, Instagram or something, I saw maybe Nemo the Mormon or something. And I went, oh, there's something new. I didn't read it, but I thought, because it was midnight, and I was like, I got to go to bed. Got to see Nathan tomorrow. So no, what did they change? Okay, I meant to look at that when I got up this morning.
You're not going to believe this. So first of all, they scrubbed the whole thing. It's not just like they're altering words. They scrubbed the whole thing. And the new one, no mention of Moroni by name, no mention of Hilkamora by name, no mention of golden plates, no mention of the name Joseph Smith.
Wow. They're really trying to get away from Joseph.
It's just all about God loves you, and there's this book, and it'll bring you closer to God, and it's all. And so I see, people, I see Mormons kind of
taking
back
it and
in
posting and saying, "This is awesome! Isn't it great to be led by a prophet of God?" And unable to go, why is this changing? And look at the contrast in front of you and go, well, what's better, what's different, and why? Why? Yeah. Boy, when I was a naive young men's presidency member, I remember it was in that phase, because I went and bragged to the young men about how I testified at work to a guy, a friend at work, standing there loading trucks back in those days, loading trucks. He's like, hey man, you ever watch South Park? Absolutely not. That's some crass humor, and I'm a Mormon. And I tried to be like, nah, man, I'm trying. It's kind of make fun of people and language and stuff. We've got kids in the house. Nah. By the way, I'm a Mormon, right? I'd interject that, and he was like, yeah, that's why I was asking, because they had an episode about your church that pretty funny. I was just wondering if you've seen it. And I was like, no, but tell me about it. He explains the whole episode, and I'm appalled. I'm like, that's not true. See, they're mocking. They're making fun. Well, Nathan, and this is, 2008, man, this is way back when he's telling me this. Whenever that episode first came out is when he told me about it. Well, the moment that, as the dust is settling and I'm going through this trauma and this anger, there was a moment of, because you do start laughing at some of this trauma with my wife. We're laughing about some of this stuff. I can't believe we're going through this. And there was a moment in all the trauma and tears that I went, I'm going to watch that South Park episode. And she was still like, no, that's vulgar, and no, it's dumb. And I said, well, and my son's like, I'll watch it with you. She's like, no, you will not. And I said, come on, honey, let's, on the phone right here. We won't put it on the TV. We'll just in the phone. We'll hide it in here, and it won't be as bad. So I've got it here. My kids are around me, and she's looking over my shoulder, acting like she doesn't want to watch. And as the episode unfolds, I'm like, I can't believe South Park knew more about the reality of our church than me, the bishop. And I'm testifying to my friend at work all those years ago who was saying, hey man, did you see the South Park episode? And as he's explaining it to me, I'm like, no, that's not true. They're mocking. They're making fun. And I'm watching going, if I could go, his name's John. If I could go back and find John, I don't think he even works there anymore. Part-timers come and go. I was like, I'd like to go back and find him and say, hey man, I saw that episode, and yeah, that's pretty funny. And it's true. That's all factually true. Couldn't believe that.
Well, I got one last question for you.
What's for dinner?
Yeah. Would you change? Would you change being raised Mormon?
No, there's no way I would want to change all the good that I got out of it. That's my lived experience. So I wouldn't want to change anything. But there's no doubt in my mind, all of the good that I got out of my childhood, raised in the church, and even my experiences of the church, and even meeting my wife, all of those experiences are experienced by people who aren't Mormon, people who are atheists, people who are all religions, people in all cultures, have all of those experiences. So being born right here, a little hillbilly in East Tennessee, I think I could have had all of those experiences not being raised a Mormon. I happened to have experienced mine in that worldview and that package that I was born into, and parts of it were beautiful. I will, to my grave, there's going to be a part of me that's like, I'm always some portion of Mormon. I don't know if someday it's going to be just 1% of me hanging on. There's always going to be a percentage of me that's like, that's my culture, that's my people. My wife's family, although it's her story to tell if she ever wants to, mass exodus on her side of extended cousins and some siblings and all that stuff. This has affected every family member in the church, every family in the church, I should say. And I remember back in the day hearing that, so-and-so's got a brother or a cousin or a sister or a dad that doesn't come or not active. Or he'll come once in a while just to make his wife happy. And it was very rare. Now it's just like, who has a family today not affected by people who are not attending, totally going, this is a fraud. And that's the problem the church has got to deal with. But no, I wouldn't change anything, because that's my life, man. But I don't think that saying is true. Everything that's unique in the church is not beautiful, and everything that's beautiful in the church is not unique. Did I get that right?
Let's see. What's unique is not,
something like that.
Yeah, I think you got it right.
But it's true. All the experiences could have been had not being raised a Mormon. Mine just happened to be in that package and with that family and with the genetics God help me that I was born with. And I love that. And I hope I can forever say I love that and take what good was there and just try to minimize harm and pain wherever I can bump into it and see it. Not that I'm going to be Superman and save the world, but if I bump into somebody or some situation and I can speak up, boy, I'm going to say, come here. I got a perspective for you. You might want to ponder. So it's crazy how this has made me a better person. 6 years into it and figuring it out, Haven't been arrested for DUI or drugs. Haven't hooked up with a prostitute yet. Let's see. Haven't laundered any money yet. I mean, for some reason, I'm still being a pretty decent person. On a serious note, though, I listened to your interview with Kai, or I watched it again. I've watched it twice now. I got 2 views on that, Kai. You're doing great, I think. And I forgot about your emergency room visit. And this is something that I contemplated not sharing, but I'm glad I remembered it because I wanted to share this, because somebody out there you might need to hear this, Nathan. Somebody out there probably needs to hear this. Woke up 4th of July, had a great 4th of July, day off of work. But Friday, the day after the 4th, I had to go to work. Didn't get the whole weekend off. So Friday, I'm getting up to work a night shift that night, and I wake up just to use the restroom and try to lay back down. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And man, I lay back down, and I'm like, ugh, my chest is hurting. Ugh, I feel uncomfortable. And I got a rib that's sometimes out of place, and I can stretch, and it'll pop, and I'll be like, oh, that feels better. So I'm thinking, my rib's really hurting, man. And I lay there, and it just continues to grow in intensity, to where I roll out of the bed and kind of lay on the vent. It's a hot day in July. I lay on the air conditioner. I'm like, that feels better. Ugh, I don't feel good. And then I thought, this is getting worse. I'm having a heart attack. What's going on here? So I kind of crawl over to the door and open it. My son from college was home. And I said, hey, bud, call 911. I think I might be having a heart attack. I'm hurting. I'm no tough guy, but I'm not going to go to the doctor or call 911 because I was starting to hurt, and it was worrying me. And so he calls 911 and then calls his mama, who was on the road taking kids to practices and stuff. Long story short, okay, by the time the emergency room, by the time the firemen come up the driveway, I'm sitting out, I popped some aspirin, and Emily calls and says, take some aspirin. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not going to argue. And so the doctor later said, that probably, I'm not going to say it saved your life, but it definitely helped your comfort level. And maybe it did save your life. I sat out on the steps when the firemen come up. I'm on the steps outside meeting them. I'm like, I'm feeling a little better, but yeah, I was hurting bad enough to call. And so I took some, it was still lingering there. And they were like, all right, we recommend you should go in an emergency room, and the nearest ambulance is an hour away because there's 7 accidents in Knoxville right now. And my wife's come up the driveway. She said, get in the van. So by the time we're leaving down the driveway, I'm like, I still want to go in because that scared me, but I feel fine right now. And that's good. I'm not sitting here in pain, so don't speed. She's got emergency. I'm like, slow down. I feel fine. That's not any pain anymore. get checked out. Or I'm in the hospital. Oh my gosh, The Walking Dead is not a TV show. It's reality in emergency rooms today in America. Wow, that was an adventure just getting in there. But I'm in the hospital 3 days, 4th of July weekend, because the docs were busy and stuff. They finally get around to saying, hey man, ultrasound video picture of the heart. Doctor, they take my blood work and stuff, and the doctor says certain things are elevated that tell us your heart had a stressful event. Don't know if it's a heart attack, but a stressful event. And we need to go in and check it out. And we're going to do that through the I forgot what they call that, when they go up the vein. I'm a hillbilly, man. I forgot what they call that. Next morning they schedule that, and they go up through the arm. I'm awake for the whole thing. Doc's good, young, confident doctor. He's talking to me, and I'm like, cool, man, whatever. My life's in your hands. Here we go. He goes, okay, I'm entering your wrist now. And as soon as he enters my wrist, like 9 seconds later, he's like, all right, I'm into your heart that quick. I was like, this is fascinating. And there's a video screen there where I can kind of see. I'm like, okay, like a roller coaster. This is kind of cool. And he says, hey man, see why your chest was giving you some pain. You got 90% blockage right here in this left upper aortic valve artery. And I was like, 90%? He said, yeah. He said, I'm gonna go ahead and put a stent in here and open that up for you. And he said a couple other things. I'm gonna do a couple other things, check some other things out here. But he said, yeah, that's why you were having chest pain. You got 90% blockage right here. And I'm laying there, and that moment hit me. I was like, because I to that point still was just like, I didn't have a heart attack, did I? And when he said 90% blockage, I thought, that could have killed. I could have died. Whoa. And so wraps up. Comes back and visits me in my room that night and the next day, before I'm going home, and he reiterates, he says this to me a few times, and again later when I visited him in his office a month or two later for my follow-up, he says, your blood work, when we took your blood work, perfect. He said, your cholesterol, perfect. You have healthy blood work. Your heart, your ultrasound, he said, you got a young man's healthy heart. He said, I'm not just blowing smoke. He said, the one spot that could have killed you, I fixed it. The stent's in there. He said, clean bill of health as far as I'm concerned. You're a young, healthy, active man. He says, you look like you exercise or you're fit, and your blood work tells us you don't have horrible diet. He said, I honestly can't explain why, this really. He said, I got marathon runners that come in here getting stents put in, and they're in their 40s. So it happens, but I can't explain why. It's just a mystery. He said, significant stress and life events, not to pry, but you can reflect on your lifestyle, stress, whatever, stuff you might need to get counsel or help or therapy, just stuff that you're carrying can lead to stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I work at night a lot, so my sleep schedule stinks. And he said, that's a red flag for sure. And I didn't say it to him, but I'm like, I've gone through the most traumatic existential crisis that I could have ever imagined going through over the last now 6 years. And I'm just now getting to where I can hear news and not get angry. Oh my God, I've almost killed myself over the last 6 years with the stress. And maybe some of this was from when I was a Mormon too, working my butt off. 60 hours at work and 20 hours at church and not getting any rest, drinking 5 hours to get through sacrament meeting. Dude, I'm killing myself. And so, red flag warning to all you people who are ever going to hear me talk, and to you, my dear friend married to my cousin. Hey, there's a point you got to turn it off and say, I don't care. I mean, from day to day, week to week, month to month, I'm always going to care something. When they stick a temple in Knoxville and I see it on the interstate, I'm probably going to go, ugh. I'm glad I'm not being volunteered into serving in that this weekend. There's going to be portions of that forever that affect me. But the quicker you can face and address and get on with living a healthy lifestyle, man, the better. Because to have a doctor, a young, confident, cocky cardiologist say, dude, perfect blood work, healthy heart, man, you're a picture of fitness and health, except for that one spot that could have killed you, and I don't know really why that happened. So man, that all flooded back to when I remembered you and your emergency room visit. This is real. And for anybody who started this thing or has stuck around to finish this thing and listen to me, if anybody was critical at any time, you don't know what you don't know. This is emotionally, spiritually, physically so difficult to go through for most of us. Don't mock it, especially if you claim to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Love and forgive and get over it. Don't mock us. This stuff's real.
Nathan, it's been a great chance to hear your story, and I didn't know a lot of that. I can't tell you enough how much I love you and what a help you were to me. I knew when I started to see that things weren't what I thought they were, that I needed to talk to you. And you gave me sound advice. You just need to take your time, don't do anything too.
Which you did not. Because you and I was just like, you were just like, you called me a few middle of the night, so I'm going down the road and the phone would ring, and I'm like, yeah, what's up, Nathan? You're like, I can't sleep, man. I was just listening to something, and did you hear this? And I was like, yeah, I remember hearing that too. And while you're on that subject, you might want to look at that one too. And you're like, okay, I'll go look at that now. And I was like, oh, he's along that road, and I can't stop him, so I might as well offer what I've been through. I hope I didn't screw anything up for you along the way. No,
you've been a great. Ever since I've known you, you've always been a good support, and
to all the Hinckleys out there, don't be offended, but your wife can attest that, and your mom can attest that. More than once, I've told your wife and your mom at church in the hallway, Nathan's my favorite Hinkley. Maybe it's because namesake, but dude, I love all your salt to the earth people. Your mom and dad are super. Boy, your grandpa Garth was just, I got to be his bishop for a minute. Yeah. And gosh, I would love to you said, maybe it was in Kai's interview where you talked about my grandpa always gave great advice to everybody. He was just a good, solid dude. Man, I would get him in for maybe a temple recommend once or something. And a 5-minute conversation, I kept him almost an hour, and I was like, I'm sorry, I need to let you go, but hey, one more thing, because I loved talking to him. So you're good people, and I love you too. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks for your time, and thanks to our viewers for watching this. Two Nathan bishops from Tennessee, and we'll talk to you next time.